Welcome to Sports Betting Tips. My name is Scott Pritchard, professional sports bettor, senior handicapper, VegasInsider.com. The plays are timestamped and documented. I've been betting sports professionally in Las Vegas since April of 1993, 30 plus years. All in, I've been betting sports for over 40 years, and I've learned a ton. I've gone from one of the world's worst sports bettors to one of the world's best. And I say that because I've won sports handicapping contests here in Las Vegas. I was fortunate to surround myself with some very like-minded people in the mid-1990s, fellow professional sports bettors that I actually learned from, and then ultimately they paid me for my opinion. It's applicable to everyday life. You want to be the best, you learn from the best, and then you beat their butt. Now, let's talk about sports betting and specifically the mistakes that you want to overcome. Okay. We know that the more you fail, the more that you succeed. Success leaves clues. A friend of mine once said a long time ago that when it comes to sports betting, bet with your head, not over it. And having been in Vegas for 30 plus years, I can tell you that I've seen good, sharp business people and or good, sharp sports bettors ultimately leave town or do themselves in or file bankruptcy and or have foreclosure simply because of one major mistake, a skill that they could not master. I think it's the most important skill when it comes to sports betting. It's not, surprisingly enough, it's not picking winners and losers. You can always hold your own, tread water. The skill set that I'm talking about, money management skills. There's something called the gambler's fallacy that specifically states that for whatever reason, gamblers never allow themselves to win as much as they allow themselves to lose. The idea is 52.4% of the time, that's the break even percentage, meaning that you are laying $11 to win 10, 1100 to win 1000, 5500 to win 5000. That's the VIG, that's the tax, that's the quote unquote house's edge. 52.4% of the time, you have to be right to break even. That means 11 times out of 21, you have to be right just to break even. The sports book, hey, they only have to be right 47.4% of the time. So there's a slight edge, but long term, it's very, very, very significant. Now, there are things that you can do to offset the house's edge by being sharp, seeing things before they happen, and getting a good number, knowing which way you think it's going to move, and by simply beating the index. And by that, I mean beating the closing number to where you can flip-flop the script. Instead of the break-even point for you being at 52.4%, you only have to be right maybe 47, 48% of the time. Now you're a small favorite against the sports book as opposed to being a small underdog. Let's talk about money management skills, because the rule of thumb is, and most people abuse this, so I'm going to give you some leeway. I'm going to share with you what the rule of thumb is, that you generally do not want to risk more than 2% of your bankroll on any one game. I'm going to bump that up and say anywhere between 2 and 5% of your bankroll you do not want to risk on any one game. In my case, I started with less than zero and over countless mistakes. Please understand, you cannot win if you're afraid to lose. Number one, you have to have an informational advantage with a sharp or a good number, okay, a good value number, and the rest will take care of itself. So what I'm here to tell you is, with money management skills, in my case, it's a little bit different only because at most sports books here in Las Vegas, I'm limited on what I can do. Each and every bet has to be approved, and about 30% of the time, my bets are flat out rejected. But when I look at my bets by kickoff or by tip-off, 90+% of the time I'm beating the closing number, which means I'm a winning player. So I never bet teams. I bet numbers, I bet value. But let's get back to money management. It's huge. It's critically important. I'm telling you not to risk more than 2 to 5% of your bankroll. Now, your ego might get in the way. You might know everything there is to know about sports. You might know the third string starting quarter. You might know the third string quarterback on a football team, but that's irrelevant. I only want to know who's playing on Sunday. Same way in basketball. If there's a key injury, the line is going to reflect that. And oftentimes, as you and I both know, the sports books have the same information that you and I have. The only difference is you're always looking for disparity. You're always looking for an unfair advantage. None of it matters if you cannot manage your money. And by that, I'm talking specifically void of emotion, no emotion. It has to be based on logic. It has to be based on an unfair advantage, and everything affects everything else. It's just like in everyday life. He with the most information generally has an advantage in life. Same way in sports betting. The more information you can have on a specific game, on a specific sport, the more you tilt the odds in your favor. Ultimately, it's about getting the best of it, but it's meaningless if you cannot manage your money. So, a case in point, as I'm going to wrap things up here, when it comes to money management, if you lose 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row, you might think that you cannot lose 5, 6, 7 games in a row. You might be thinking, hey, I'm going to bet my way out of this. Well, that's a strategy, but it's not a very good strategy. If you're betting $1,000 a game and you lose 3, 4 games in a row, and now it's Sunday night, there's one game, one time, the Sunday night game, and you use that game to bail yourself out, and now you're going to bet 5 dimes, 5,000 on one game. Again, you have to keep everything relevant. Okay. So you do not ever want to press. You want to keep that in mind. 2 to 5% of your bankroll. You should never risk more than that on any one bet, because there's going to be variance. I don't care, even if you, the biggest, baddest sports bettor on the planet, Billy Walters, his golden objective was to hit 55% winners, and he would bet 6 figures a game. Think about that. The biggest, baddest sports bettor on the planet, betting 6 figures a game. Don't take my word for it. Go ahead and YouTube 60 Minutes, Billy Walters interview. Feared by a lot of bookmakers in this town, sports books in this town. The guy is flat out a living legend. If he's saying his goal and objective is to hit 55% winners, what makes you think that you're going to hit 60, 65%? If someone's telling you they're hitting 70, 75, 80% winners, run from that person. Run, Forrest, run. So if the break-even percent is 52.4%, but you're sharp, you're getting good numbers, you can lower that to where you only have to be right 47, 48% of the time. And then if you're hitting 55% winners, you are way ahead of the game. But here's my point. Let's just say that last year, let's say that you hit 55% winners for the year. That's a good profitable win annually for sure, because anything over 47, 48, or worst case scenario, 52.4%, you are in the gravy. But you're going to, if you made 1,000 bets, basically 3 bets a day on average, you're going to come across where you had 3, 4, 5, 6 losses in a row. Not a time to panic. Let's just say that you know that you're going to hit 55, 58% long term, and there's going to be peaks and valleys, ups and downs. Bet with your head, not over it. See the cashier.